Welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving straight into the fascinating blueprint of how the tech sector went from a really risky post-dot-com gamble to literally the sovereign ruler of modern global capitalism. We're going to unpack a massive shift here, the move from a world built on heavy iron and physical assets to one completely governed by code. You've probably heard this iconic 5-word thesis from elite venture capitalist Mark Andreessen back in 2011. Software is eating the world. Well, it wasn't just a catchy headline. It was an absolutely spot-on prediction that traditional physical industries were about to get obliterated. He saw, way before most, that software was breaking out of the IT department and getting ready to devour legacy businesses. So here is our roadmap for today. 1. The macroeconomic pivot. 2. The infrastructure flywheel. 3. How code replaced concrete. 4. The sovereign code moat. 5. The VC operating system. And finally, 6. Phase 7 AI ingestion. All right, Section 1. The macroeconomic pivot. The inversion of the material chassis. To really get this, we have to transport ourselves back to the late summer of 2011. The global economy was still super bruised by the 2008 financial crisis, and traditional physical manufacturing, it was just exhausted. Wall Street was actually still terrified of tech after the 2001 dot-com crash, but Andreessen noticed this massive, hidden trend. The digital foundation, the internet's plumbing basically, was finally built, fully wired, and just waiting to ignite. Let's move to Section 2, the infrastructure flywheel. 1999 versus 2011. This contrast is honestly wild. Think about it. In 1999, starting an internet company meant you spent most of your funding just buying heavy physical server racks, and then you launched to a tiny consumer base still listening to the screech of dial-up internet. Fast forward to 2011, Amazon Web Services put those physical servers into the cloud, and the iPhone put a supercomputer in everyone's pocket. Suddenly, you had frictionless liquid scale. You could launch a global business almost instantly. Section 3. How code replaced concrete. The dematerialization engine. Now that the mobile conduit was wired, a total physical deathmatch kicked off. On one side, you had legacy giants like Blockbuster and Borders getting crushed by huge real estate cost and physical inventory overhead. On the other side, Netflix and Amazon. And they didn't just build slightly better stores, they completely dematerialized physical items, like movies and books, into liquid digital packets. Think about Uber or Airbnb. They don't own cars or hotels. They just built the software to match demand, achieving parabolic global scale with basically zero physical footprint. It's brilliant. This brings us to Section 4, the sovereign code moat, asymmetric software economics. And it all comes down to a brutal mathematical reality, the magic number of $0. Look, if a traditional car company wants to double its output, they have to buy more steel. Actually, scratch that. They have to build a whole new factory, right? But with pure software, once the master code is written and dropped on a cloud server, the marginal cost to produce the very next copy, whether it's for 10 users or 100 million users, is exactly $0. That zero cost asymmetry, it powers a vicious 4-step cycle. First, zero marginal costs equal massive profit margins, creating a high-margin cash turbine. Second, companies use that mountain of cash to poach the absolute sharpest apex software engineers away from legacy industries, pure intellectual capture. Third, as their platforms scale, they gather billions of real-time data points to constantly feed back into and improve their algorithms. And finally, step 4, they become essential daily infrastructure, creating an unassailable global platform lock. All right, Section 5, the VC operating system, the A16Z blueprint. Knowing this underlying math, Andreessen and Ben Horowitz basically tore up the old passive Sandhill Road investment model and built an entirely new kind of corporate factory. Their philosophy was simple. It's way easier to teach a brilliant engineer to be a CEO than to teach a traditional MBA how to code. So they created this massive in-house Hollywood-style agency. They surrounded hardcore technical founders with elite executive headhunters, dedicated PR teams, and direct matchmaking with Fortune 500 executives. They essentially turned venture capital into a radical tech kingmaker machine. But as this whole venture capital operating system perfected the art of ingesting manual physical industries, it leads us to a deeply unsettling question. What happens when that exact same logic turns inward? What happens when software starts eating itself? Which brings us to Section 6, Phase 7, AI ingestion, the cognitive wave. This is the ultimate unbroken continuum of that 2011 manifesto, cognitive ingestion. Generative AI large language models from companies like OpenAI and Anthropic aren't just storing data anymore. They are native software writing, debugging, and compiling their own code in milliseconds. But it's not just programming, it's colonizing premium white-collar intellect. We're talking about analyzing legal contracts, diagnosing medical issues, rating complex financial forecasts. If an industry's main output is structured information, it's completely susceptible to being replaced by a neural network, which drives the cost of cognitive labor down to absolute zero. When you map this continuum out, it's pretty staggering. From the mobile custom apps that killed off physical media in 2011 to the machine cognition wave of the 2010s, all the way to the hyper-dense Cerebral Valley AI grids projected for San Francisco in 2026. The technology obviously looks way different now, but the underlying math, it is traveling exactly down the structural highway that Andreessen paved over a decade ago. And so here we are. The ancient tyranny of physical assets has completely collapsed into automated data fabrics. Our logistics, our energy grids, our banks, they're all managed by invisible layers of code now. So the massive final thought to take away from this explainer is this. As algorithmic ingestion continues to mercilessly automate our physical and cognitive limits, who truly holds the power? And honestly, what remains uniquely human when the final line of reality is turned into code?